The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Bowman.
Deputy Speaker, in combating international poverty, one of the few really great successes has been the Global Fund to target these three major infectious diseases worldwide that kill, as we've already heard, around 3,500 people every day and result in thousands of additional infections and enormous morbidity for families, particularly in developing economies. The origins of the fund go back to prior to the year 2000, when a number of leading economists were looking at ways to provide a carrot and effectively a reward for both nations and for corporations that invested heavily in the solutions to what at that time were unsolvable problems, the top three killers. Malaria, TB and HIV had for a long time taken hundreds of thousands of lives over the decades that preceded the year 2000, but only then did a guy called Jeffrey Sachs, working together with Michael Kremer from the School of Economics at Harvard, first talk about a global fund. The initial conception was to have donor nations in particular put money aside that would serve to be a carrot to attract investment into new forms of pharmaceuticals that could one day help us win this great struggle, this titanic struggle. But what happened in the intervening period, of course, is that the large and particularly the G8 nations got together with pharmaceutical manufacturers and negotiated some very impressive breakthroughs where these expensive, particularly the HIV drugs, could be provided at just a fraction of the cost. So all of that negotiation around the Global Fund was then able to be turned into effectively a leveraging instrument, which, unlike the UN bodies with which it was working, didn't have major in-country offices, didn't seek to tell nations what to do, but instead just focused on the simple principles of working with national priorities, working as a leverage rather than a provision, simply a provider of services, that sought where it could to leverage in-country expertise, to do independent evaluation and to be completely balanced in the way they approach these three great killers. So they didn't focus on one intervention, one region or one disease unfairly. That was the essence of the Global Fund, and we've had the three commitments to replenishing. The most recent one, quite successful, October 4-5 in New York, where the second replenishment of $9.7 billion has increased to $11.7 billion. Over those three replenishments, we've seen jumps of 80% and then most recently 20%. And what's very promising is that most of those who contribute funds have actually backed up the walk with talk. So those monies that have been committed are coming through. And in fact, in the most recent replenishment, where they've achieved $11.7 billion, about $3.2 billion of that is expected to come when these donor nations are able to fund those commitments. The estimation is we need $20 billion over this three-year period. In reality, we have just under 12. So that tells us that we're getting somewhere near, but still not close enough to what would be the ideal target. We know from national plans in the 83 nations that are afflicted with malaria, of the 116 with TB, and about the similar number combating HIV, that the two really great challenges will be predominantly men having sex with men as the chief threat in HIV transmission, women having babies who are HIV positive. They will be the two key focuses around HIV because we are seeing an expansion, a radical jump that has actually caused a J-curve in the reporting of HIV in these nations. With drug-resistant TB, again, the challenge is to get the suite of drug correct and have them available in all nations, and that was a real success of the last three-year period. And then obviously with malaria, insecticide-impregnated nets that are available to people to reduce the chance of, particularly around dusk and while sleeping, infection with malaria. Now, just to turn very, very briefly to those three Millennium Goals, the ones we're actually most optimistic about is 6, which is the reduction of these dreadful communicable diseases, but they are also contributing to Goal 4 around child mortality being halved and 5, maternal mortality being halved. And the communique that came out from the most recent meeting in New York was really encouraging because they're pointing at country coordinating mechanisms, CCMs, that allow this effort, which is fundamentally a financial instrument, to get down into countries and actually leverage the ability and the capacities on the ground. And that means that it's being implemented slightly differently in each country, a real change from the struggle that these agencies have had before to coordinate multiple donors and to work with local capacity. And then finally, it's good to see ACFID right here in Australia recommending, with its 5 health-related recommendations, that Australia's aid increases to 20% of total overseas aid being health-related, 15% being related to family planning, a focus on avoidable blindness, and of course their recommendations around treatment of these three conditions. So we welcome the government's increase to $210 million, which is only 1% of what's needed, and it's well short of our GDP as a contribution to global GDP, but still a very important contribution towards Millennium Development Goals that could well be achieved.